Welcome to the GamerDad podcast, where we talk about all things Magic the Gathering and gaming. We strive to keep things fun, fit into our busy lives, because gaming's worth finding time for. I'm GamerDadBob, and I Final Fantasy Tactics just wrecked me. So, I tried it. I missed it 28 years ago. I tried it. I couldn't get into it. I think that remake was made for people who just wanted revenge on Wheatgraf. I don't know anything about it. I didn't know anything going into it. I wasn't familiar with your game, Final Fantasy Tactics, and you wrecked me. So on my turn-based Tuesdays, they're back to Chrono Cross, my comfort zone. So yeah, I guess I'll never latch on to that game at this point, even with the remake. But tonight, I've been struck by a bit of inspiration for an off week, and I had to lay something down. So here I am, unsupervised, unfiltered, maybe just a little unhinged. And so what the hell? Let's have some fun with this one. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about video game adaptations into film and television. This should be a real trip back for some of you. And wait, these really existed for some others. So strap in while I yap for a while. So segment one, I want to talk about what I'm calling the Wild West years. We're talking 1993 through 2006. Yes, I realize some of you may not have even been born who listen to this, and others, well, you're gamer dads. You're like me. So before The Last of Us and Fallout started winning awards, we had the wilderness, the Wild West of game adaptations. And nobody knew what they were doing. Studios were chasing quick cash. Half the time, I'm not even convinced anyone had held a controller. In all seriousness, did these producers, studios, and anything even play a video game? So let's start with the most egregious one of them all. I'm talking about the Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993. Bob Hoskins just came off Hook, and a couple others, but Hook was his big one, right? He was Smee. We loved him next to Dustin Hoffman. And we had John Leguizamo before he was John Leguizamo. I mean, let's be honest here. 1993, you're pushing it. So Mario, Bob Hoskins, Luigi, John Leguizamo, and Dennis Hopper is Koopa. What? Let's just get the all-star cast and hope that the big names would carry the movie. And we had Rocket Boots, this weird fungus-infested cyberpunk city. It's like someone described Super Mario Brothers over a bad phone connection, and the director said, I could work with that. And yet, now, I can't stay mad at it. It's just, so bizarre. And it just loops around this, being, is it entertaining? Is it unintentional art? Is it this fever dream? And truly, this, I think, in my mind, is what kicked off about 30 years of trial and error. So as we kind of dive in tonight with everything, keep this one in the back of your mind as path clearing, groundbreaking. I don't know what to call it, but the fact that this movie exists is still very important, because without a movie like this, without a Super Mario Brothers video game adaptation movie, other movies may not have been there. So this crawled so others could walk and run. So we're starting with that. Let's dive into one of my favorites, Mortal Kombat, 1995. I loved this movie. I still love this movie. Saw it in theaters, and at the time, it was absolutely electric. So I don't know about any of you, but when I saw this in theaters, they just rolled out, I remember Crossgates Mall, Albany, New York. They just rolled out the Dolby Digital system into the physical system into the movie theaters, right? And while they had been doing Dolby Digital soundtracks and everything for a while, the hardware wasn't in place. And I remember the big Regal Cinemas push to get this Dolby system in physically for this Mortal Kombat movie, so that when Mortal Kombat and the techno and the metal and everything hit, and by the way, that soundtrack slaps. It is platinum for a reason. But all of that combined and everything with the Dolby Digital footprint, it was just so good. It just hit. And okay, you watch the movie now and it's a little dated. It's cheesy. But I want you to think about this. Practical stunts and choreography in this movie were excellent. They had true martial artists in here, and those who didn't know martial arts learned them. The actor who played Liu Kang was actually training people on the side to fight. So these actors who didn't know martial arts were really into it. They wanted to make this seem real. They wanted it to embody the video game. And real wire work, you know? It had weight. And one of the things I appreciated a lot about this movie is they held back on like the flashy powers, the projectiles and stuff that you get from the game, because those exist. They did do like the scorpion palm thing where the thing came out of his palm and the spear, and it was like a little animal hunter seeker thing, a little inspiration from Dune there almost. And but they didn't really go crazy with the key manifestations until the end, the very end with Liu Kang, when he has that final strike on Shang Tsung. And that made the moment feel earned. They didn't try and go over the top. I mean, Jesus Christ, look at what Goro looked like. Holy animatronics and puppetry and you name it. Like that was a thing. Goro probably should be haunting my dreams still right now, but it never happened. Everything looked good, and except Reptile. You want to talk about the epitome of bad 90s CGI? That Reptile in that movie was so bad. And like the green screen use there and everything. What was that with Could you imagine like trying to wrestle with a fake lizard thing as the actor who played Liu Kang? And then and poor Christopher Lambert. What was that rated? Really, what was that rated? His accent changed scene to scene. I did some digging here. He paid some out-of-pocket money to finish filming this movie just because he cared about it enough. You got to respect that. Like, and in 2025, wire work, grounded combat, all that stuff still wins me over, right? The really good choreography, the actual hits and stuff, the blocks, the punch sounds. I mean, you can't fake that sound of a block, right? You can't fake that in a movie. You can build it in the soundstage and everything, but it's not the same as a Marvel green screen when you're doing that. So that all it hits. And like movies like The Batman, which came out a couple years ago, they nailed it, right? Ditch that Marvel green screen. Give me the sweat, the impact, any day over everything. And that's what made Mortal Kombat great at the time. And that soundtrack, of course. Tomb Raider. Let's talk a little bit about Angelina Jolie. Tomb Raider 2001, 2003. I love these movies. I don't love them, but I watch them. I mean, they sit in like the nostalgia zone. But let's be honest, it came out at the same window as The Mummy, and these don't hold a candle to The Mummy. Sorry. I still watch The Mummy once or twice a year. Tomb Raider maybe like once a decade. I watched it a couple months ago, actually, both movies, just because. And here's where it gets weird for me. I never really played any of the early games, so I don't know like the full deep lore from the early games, like the polygons and Laura's polygons. But like, I wish the movies had leaned more into actual tombs instead of like boardrooms and helicopters. And the villain was played by Ian Glenn, you know, Jorah Mormont from Game of Thrones. My Khaleesi. He's this like slick-haired faux ally who turns evil halfway through. I mean, knowing that in hindsight, knowing who he is and who he played, going from this greasy villain to Jorah in Game of Thrones, it's just this weird full circle moment where you're like, that's the dude from Game of Thrones. Yes, I knew I've seen him somewhere. And then like you turn around and there's Daniel Craig in a supporting role. Not even like first billing. That's criminal by today's standards. I mean, you watch Knives Out, Glass Onion, and you're like, who buried that guy in the B plot? And sure, the pacing could have used a little boost in the Tomb Raider movie. All of those movies were, a lot of the early ones really struggled to find good pacing because they're covering what they tie in as kind of a video game themed story and everything. But these video games, even the early games, they were not, 2 to 3 hours start to finish. These games were probably 10-hour gameplays. So you got to compress that all into a movie. So the pacing is always a real challenge when you move that from game to screen. And to me, pacing could have used a little bit of a boost in those movies, even with all the action they baked in. And I mean, let's face it. Angelina Jolie was looking fine back in the day. Everyone crushed on her. And it helped the movie, helped the marketing. It got butts in seats. I don't remember if I saw that in theaters. I'm wondering if we did. I'd have to ask my parents. That's not a memorable one for me. And speaking of, like, not memorable, let's talk about the Resident Evil series of movies. So here's the weird part. I played Resident Evil 1 to death. I played Resident Evil 4 to death. I do not remember a damn thing about this Resident Evil movie. I know Mila Jovovich fits the genre. Look at her in Fifth Element. She's a badass. She's got the like stoic action hero presence, but like the film itself, I barely remember it. So I had to like look it up. I was like, what happens in this movie and everything? And it's this early 2000s industrial metal meets Matrix energy, latex suits, slow-mo bullets, blue filters, Michelle Rodriguez. And it's like fun to watch, but it didn't have that same tension of survival horror games. It felt like a spin-off, not an adaptation. And where is Albert Wesker? Come on. Your main antagonist? But still, it kicked off the long-running game movie franchise. I mean, even if no one remembers the plot, most people look at that and they go, holy shit, there were 6 of these movies? That kind of makes it a big deal, right? It has to. So, yeah, it's Resident Evil. It's there. It crawled. It exists. Again, that's an important part for this section. Now is where I lose some credibility for those of you who are still listening and watching. Because I'm going to talk a little bit about one of my guilty pleasure video game movies. And that's DOA, Dead or Alive 2006. All right, hear me out. I like this one. And it's really simple why. Hot people fighting. That's it. Men and women, both. Decent choreography, goofy plot. For me, it's just like turn your brain off, watch the movie, enjoy the action, enjoy looking at hot people. Jamie Presley, Devin Akey. And then you have Eric Roberts as this over-the-top villain. It's just fun. And then they worked in, so like the wire work from Mortal Kombat, they kind of took it next level at this. There was some crazy stuff, neon beaches, tournament nonsense. And then, you know, they keep the kind of thing that like you throw on when you don't want any depth. And it's just like energy. It's just, I just want to feel the energy from this movie. And what I appreciate about this movie is it knew exactly what it was. It leaned into the absurdity pretending it was art. And then you compare that to like Resident Evil, which took itself way too seriously. Dead or Alive feels more like gaming. Flashy, ridiculous, self-aware, entertaining, hot people. It helps. And you know, speaking of the hot people thing, I mean, what's their big claim to fame from the video game, right? It's the jiggle physics. All the dudes love that. They kind of translated it into film. That's what everybody wants to see. It knew what it was. It knew exactly what it was. So like, if I had to label this entire Wild West era, right? It's kind of like, at least in the movies that I highlighted here, it's like chaotic charm. That's the best way I can describe it. It's these fever dreams of Super Mario Brothers movie with the little weird Goomba guy with the tiny head and the huge broad shoulders. Who was that actor? Seriously, who was the poor bastard sitting in that suit? To the Fungus City Cyberpunk, to Resident Evil Matrix copies, to you name it. It's just Tomb Raider, pacing, Angelina Jolie. So studios didn't quite understand the games yet, but like that cluelessness made some of these movies recognizable, memorable. And they weren't. Here's the thing that's interesting. Clearly, when you make a movie, you're experimenting in public. You have to. This is a production. It's meant to be viewed. Occasionally, they struck gold or, you know, mostly bronze, just with some good lighting. But they stumbled so the next generation could run or jump kick or something else. So in segment 2, I'm calling this one the Bridge to Redemption. This is actually a kind of a broad range because in my mind, we didn't get a ton of excellent video game adaptations till closer to 2020. So this segment's from 2010 to 2019. And you're probably going to debate me on this, and that's fair. But after the self-serious we're prestige now feel, Hollywood finally started inching back toward the fun. And these weren't perfect movies, but they started to feel like games again. Like the people making them understood why the players cared in the first place. Okay, Prince of Persia, 2010. This one's fine. The story was good. I like the story. The action was fun. They did a really good job highlighting and we're not talking like the old Nintendo style Prince of Persia games. We're talking about the PS2 games, the parkour games, the Sands of Time games and everything. And the action is fun. And they had the time reset mechanic. It genuinely felt like in the game, right? You get the dagger, you rewind the fight, it worked. But holy shit, the whitewashing. Guys, Hollywood. What is this? Jake Gyllenhaal is a Persian prince? Gemma Arterton is the princess? A sea of white faces in the Middle East. Come on. Come on now. Even back then, it felt weird. It's like, what are we watching? 15 years later? That's like impossible to ignore. This aged like milk. Ooh. And here's the thing that is the most turning off for this one. Is like Hollywood chased bankable names instead of authenticity. And that really showed with this. And like, sure, Gemma Arterton, freaking hot. I mean, I still think she's hot. She's my wife's age. So, you know, it's kind of a respectful admiration thing, naturally. But like, movie itself was good. Solid popcorn fare. It just never really justified its existence. It's one of those movies where you're like, yep, Prince of Persia, it existed. It's a thing. Jake Gyllenhaal has it on his IMDb page. That's a thing. But man, the potential for a sequel and other things that they had here were just absolutely destroyed because of what they did. Their choices in casting and everything. Man, what a miss. What an opportunity. Would you guys remake Prince of Persia today with proper casting? I bet it would be cool. Bet it would be cool as hell. I mean, look at the casting from like let's put Will Smith aside, but like look at the casting from the Aladdin movie on Disney, the live action. That was good. They did a really nice job with that. They could have done it here just 15 years ago. Probably not a thing. All right, moving on. And this is actually really funny because my wife asked me what I was talking about tonight, and I was like, well, I'm talking about movies, and I rattled off the movies that we're talking about, and I said Warcraft, and she goes, I don't think I watched that one. I said, we watched this together. And she goes, I don't remember that. And I said, yeah, well, we both said it was decent, and then we never spoke of it again. That's kind of like the perfect review for this one. Like, Warcraft looked incredible. The CGI, the armor design, the spell effects, and the story moved like a raid boss on lag. Yes, that's what I'm calling it. Critics even called it sluggish and overstuffed, and man, they were right. It tried to cram all of this Warcraft lore into one film, and the result was like this gorgeous background art wrapped around a Wikipedia summary. It didn't do it for me. And admittedly, like, I never played World of Warcraft. I know, it's weird. You'd think that WoW would be on brand for me, but little sidebar, I never got too into MMOs. I was in college kind of when WoW came out, and college college internet was not quite as good as at home. And I never got into it. Latency problems, computer problems. I didn't start building my own PCs until about 2005, 2006. So I didn't have stuff really great spec for these games because you needed top of the line to really run these well. You couldn't run it on a laptop. And so I never got into the lore. I couldn't really tell you a ton about the Horde or the humans or any of that stuff. And this was like a orcs and humans sort of thing. I remember there was like some kind of a weird having to work with the enemy dynamic here and then some other stuff going on. I might have to give this a rewatch. It's on HBO Max right now. Maybe I'll watch that this weekend or something, see if I can get that in, doing some post-recording research. But I'll give it points for sincerity. Now, here's where things, in my opinion, started getting good. Tomb Raider. I know, I already said Tomb Raider. I get it. But hear me out. Tomb Raider 2018. I saw this one in theaters. This one worked. Why? Alicia Vikander, coming off Ex Machina, right, was the perfect young Lara Croft. So when you nail these movies with casting, it helps so much. And the film drew straight from the Tomb Raider reboot trilogy, the Crystal Dynamics and Square Enix games. And I love those. And believe it or not, my wife got me into those. She started playing them before me. And it just nailed the tone. There was this rookie Lara, this vulnerable, stubborn, reckless girl who was looking for her father, and she finds some clues, follows the breadcrumbs and ends up trapped on this island, right? And because of a storm. And that's like following the game, right? And you find out that Himiko in this one is not so much a storm queen like in the game, but she's a plague maiden. And it's like this was an alternate plot that they had designed for the game, and they're like, we can just spin this into the movie. And it worked. The plague maiden instead of storm queen, it worked, it fit. And they still have Trinity as kind of like those sneaky bad guys, and they have that set up for the sequel. It all lined up at the end where like the lead of Trinity, the whole mastermind behind it, is right in front of Laura's face. Spoilers, sorry, it's 2018, 7 years ago. And she walks out, and then Laura figures it out. And that's the tragedy for me. This movie deserved a sequel, and I don't think it did well enough in theaters for studios to go, this one gets a sequel. There's like this balance between game logic and cinematic storytelling that everyone's been chasing, and they hit it in this game, and then it just didn't manifest into a sequel. This one deserves one. If there's any gaming studios that want to produce this, or movie studios, make a second one happen. Of course, unless Alicia Vikander doesn't want to come back. I don't know anything about how she was. Walton Goggins is the bad guy? Come on. He was so good. We'll talk about him again later. All right, next movie. This one we didn't get to catch in theaters, which is very disappointing to me. Detective Pikachu. This movie hit, everything clicked. Everything clicked. You got your world building. It was spot on. The worlds felt alive. Every skyline was packed with Pokemon just existing, right? Everywhere you look, there were naturally Pokemon just hanging around, coexisting with humans. I did a little bit of research. Over 60 species made it on screen. And it was kind of fun to catch them all. Yes, pun intended. But you're going through and going, oh, that's a Bulbasaur. Oh, that's a Mankey. That's a Primeape. That's a, whatever. And it was kind of fun. Snubbull. The Cubone at the beginning was hilarious. And, like, it worked. The CGI was a little bit ultra realistic, right? You lose the cartoony portion of what they look like. Pikachu looked adorable. That Charizard, that Gyarados, terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. And Ryan Reynolds as Pikachu shouldn't have worked. It really shouldn't have, if you think about it. Like, this is Van Wilder in Deadpool, and this little yellow mouse that threatens to zap you with his butt, but it worked. It's like that slightly off human inside a Pokemon vibe. That was the point. And Ryan Reynolds actually did a good job there. I am a Ryan Reynolds defender, by the way, so miss me with any of the criticism there. I've even watched it with my son. Like, he's seen it a few times, and honestly, should probably watch it again now that he's older. Maybe he'll have an even better appreciation for it. He loves Pokemon. He loves Pokemon cards. It hit both audiences, kids and adults, without, talking down to either of us. It felt like a Pokemon movie. Loved it. So what did this era teach us? This era, to me, marked a turning point. When Hollywood started to trust the material again. The tone shifted from prove games can be movies to celebrate what makes them special. And we kind of saw that even as we evolved in here, right? So we went from Prince of Persia that was kind of figuring it out, to Warcraft that absolutely nailed the lore and missed on the delivery, to Tomb Raider that absolutely hit it out of the park with everything you would want from a Tomb Raider fan for the game, to Detective Pikachu that just hit. The groundwork was there, the authenticity, the tone, the fun. And then we have the redemption arc. I'm calling the next section the redemption arc, 2019 through 2025. And before we talk about some modern wins here, let's do a quick shout out to Wreck-It Ralph. And while that wasn't based on a specific game, its understanding of game culture better than anything before it was just insane. It leaned hard into the nostalgia, the mashups, the emotional core. And it was the first film that said, hey, games have heart. And, that movie walks so Detective Pikachu and Sonic could run. Gotta go fast. Animation kept leading, like Castlevania proved that you could treat games seriously. I watched the first season of Castlevania on Netflix, that anime. It was great. And then like adult life happened and I couldn't watch it anymore. And it was like the same thing with like the Voltron reboot on Netflix also. I got like through the first season and then I couldn't keep up. And then like, holy shit, just recently, Cyberpunk Edgerunners. Man, talk about hitting it out of the park. Nailing a Cyberpunk story. So in this section, a little bit of redemption here. And the first one's pretty funny. Let's talk about The Witcher on Netflix. For one shining season, The Witcher felt like everything clicked. Henry Cavill was Geralt of Rivia. Gruff, grounded, perfect tone. Henry Cavill loves the lore of The Witcher. He's read all of the books. He's played the games. Cavill is Geralt. And season 1 balanced like that humor and the brutality and the heart. And then the showrunners decided they knew better. And I mean, The Witcher is in the news right now for season 4 with Liam Hemsworth. And the showrunners are trying to justify why he's really going to tie a bow on the whole series and everything. But like, the showrunners drifted from canon so far that you could see it on film. Henry Cavill looked miserable in his takes in season 2. And by season 3, dude was going through the motions. Like, I had just read the books at the time, so watching them was like, watching them twist into like this weird fan fiction for reasons completely unknown. Like, and then we saw some like Reddit posts and other things where like the showrunners were making fun of and the writers were making fun of the source material. Like, what the hell was that? Do they understand what they had here? Season 1 they did. Where did things go wrong? I want to know. That, you know, when I die, if I get one question, like at the pearly gates, if that's actually a thing, probably not, but if I get one question, I want to know what the showrunners did to Witcher season 2, rather. That's my one question. Not why are we here? What's the purpose of life? What happened to Witcher, Netflix series? They alienated their core audience. Authenticity matters, guys. Once fans lose trust, it's all gone. It's all gone. Let's touch back on Cyberpunk Edgerunners now. This animated show, coming on the heels of the video game from CDPR in 2019. Woo! This was so good. And this was redemption, not necessarily from Hollywood, but from an animated film. And Edgerunners is the cyberpunk story. And if you know the lore, if you know the world, if you've played Cyberpunk 2077, read their spin-off book, no coincidence, I listened to that, the audiobook. If you listen to that book, if you know the world, the thing is, 10 episodes into this series, one clear message. Night City claims even the brightest burning. No cyberpunk story ends happily. It's just not Night City, baby. I mean, look at how the beginning starts for Cyberpunk 2077. Look at how your character V falls so fast. V should have died. It respected the world. It tied loosely to the game. It built characters you actually cared about. And here's the thing that actually mattered to me. They chose no filler, no censorship. There was gratuitous violence. There was sex. There was nudity. There was no compromise in this show. It was cyberpunk, and it proved faithfulness and creativity can coexist. And honestly, it kind of saved Cyberpunk's 2077's reputation. It got a ton of people back playing again, and just in time for the Phantom Liberty expansion that came out, and they sprinkled in a couple of side quests and everything and bonus things, kind of like they did with Witcher. CDPR has been good about that. They've been sprinkling in like show adaptations back into the game, like, oh, there's the armor from the TV show, now you can get it in the game, or you get David's jacket in the game. How cool is that? I loved Edgerunners. Actually, I should probably give it another watch before season 2 comes out. Yes, we're getting a season 2. Yes, it's a completely different story. Maybe some of the characters cross. We don't know yet. But man, I'm excited. It was that good. Now, let's talk about Sonic the Hedgehog. The blue blur has arrived. And the Sonic movie did everything it needed to. It remembered who it was for. And it started with the design fiasco that turned into a masterclass of fan bullying and the studio listening to fans. And you guys remember what Ugly Sonic looked like, right? That's nightmare fuel. And the funny thing is, like, if you guys have seen the new Rescue Rangers movie where it's like half CGI, half animated, and they're searching for God, who are they looking for? Now I can't remember if it was like Chip or Dale or something. Maybe it was Dale. And you remember like Ugly Sonic at the game convention? He had his own booth and it was like, go get your picture with Ugly Sonic. Like even the movie studios leaned into it. So it was really funny. And they fixed it and they turned it into a genuinely fun movie. James Marsden, so good in that. He's so versatile. He can do anything, man. And then they built a franchise out of it. And it got better. Sonic 2, Sonic 3. Man, that was so good. Keanu Reeves is Shadow. Talk about inspired casting. Like, Shadow was great. My little dude loves Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's because of these movies. It really is. And like, even getting in the car today, this afternoon, from carpool duty, not duty, pickup, he gets in the car, and what's one of the first things he says as he's getting in the car? Gotta go fast. It's just it's permeated into his world, and that tells me the movie's done it right. The energy, the humor, the pacing, it was perfect for kids, nostalgic adults. Because of that movie, Alex loves Sonic, and that, my friends, is the win. That's the win. Your kids love Sonic. I have two more. The Last of Us on HBO. I've already talked about this one in my Game Narratives Done Right episode. Well, let's talk about why it deserves mention here as well. From the start, this show respected the audience. It filed the games, filled in some gaps, took some liberties, like the attack on the... why can't I think of the name of the damn city? You guys will tell me what it is. Stuff that didn't happen, but it was okay. It didn't take away from the narrative. The stuff that they did was deliberate enough, it mattered. It felt earned. The soul of the show stayed intact, right? Relationships, grief, post-apocalyptic world, the desperation of people, the hopelessness, the zombies. They did a great job with the clickers, the bloaters, the makeup, the CGI. But they didn't go overboard, right? These movies have never been, these shows have never been, these games have never been about the zombies. It's about human beings and how they get by in these post-apocalyptic worlds. And 2 seasons into this show and it hasn't missed a beat. You can't tell me that the second episode of the second season, for those of you who hadn't played the games, was not one of the most jarring things ever. And they did it. They didn't have to. The showrunners could have pulled punches on that. And they didn't. My phone blew up with text messages from friends who hadn't played the game. They're like, are you kidding me? Our buddy Matt was texting me. He's like, did they really just do that? I was like, yeah, it happened in the game. He's like, It's like, yeah, this was not some weird creative decision. I was like, enjoy, because this season is a hell of a ride. Speaking of which, I got to catch up on it because I only watched through like episode 3. So this show has got it. They nailed it. I'm looking forward to the 3rd season whenever they get that through. They're telling us it's going to focus around Abby, which should be really interesting. We're going to take a focus off of Ellie a little bit. I believe that. It makes sense. Hopefully they bring it full circle and end it in a good spot. And maybe because the show is so good, Naughty Dog gives us a Last of Us 3? Something? Anything? Naughty Dog's new game looks really cool. The space game. I'm excited to play that one. All right, finally, Fallout. Jesse loves Fallout. And boy, did he really get to tell me all about the world and everything when this show came out. And he's like, Bob, it's good. It's so good. It's accurate to the story. This show, the creators, the writers, the actors, they all understood the assignment. It nailed the balance between humor, horror, and hopeless optimism. Oh my gosh. And the tone, the music, the old-timey kind of music, the retro futurism with like the Pip-Boy and everything. That stuff's cool. That's cool game lore, and they brought it to life on film. Absolutely. And Walton Goggins, absolutely phenomenal, and the rest of the cast around him is just as good. And I think why this worked, and again, for me as an outsider, I'm watching this without any game experience, but it was the world. They weren't adapting a specific game plot. They just adapted the world. And being that the world is so huge and well established in the Fallout universe, they had so much to borrow from. They had a lot of wiggle room, and they did it, and it was perfect. Like, I didn't get to play those games mostly because I get that first person shooter nausea. Try saying that 3 times fast. Jesus. But this show made me want to, and I picked up like Fallout 4. Didn't work. But I tried it. That show made me try it. Never played any of the games. That says everything. If a show will get me to try and suffer through some first-person nausea, did something right. The new season comes this December. We are months away from a season 2 of Fallout. Oh, I am already taking the last 2 weeks off of the year for just recharge and family stuff. Man, we got this. We got Stranger Things. It's going to be such a good end of the year. I'm so excited. And that's not something I could have said about video game adaptations into film and TV 10 years ago. My hype levels were way different than they are now for these things. It's just where we're at. And 3 decades later, we've gone from Super Mario, remember that fever dream that I talked about, to Fallout. And that's not just improvement. That's evolution. It's evolution, baby. We watch game adaptations stumble, learn, and finally grow up. The Wild West years gave us chaos. The Prestige era gave us money but no soul. And the Bridge years brought respect back to the material. See, I actually wrote this down and I wanted to get it right. And now the studios just get it. I think they get it. And if there are video game adaptations that flop, if Horizon Zero Dawn and God of War, I think they're both going to be Amazon. If those flop, they effed up. All the tools and resources are there. This does not have to flop. If the Horizon Zero Dawn show is about fighting machines and not about a post-apocalyptic world after robots destroyed it all because humanity allowed them to, so it had a chance at survival, if that's not what that show's about, they're going to screw it up. And I have no idea where they're going to take God of War. Are they going to be old school Kratos or new school Kratos or what? But that's going to depend heavily also on the actor and how they portray the show and the story. If we have new school Kratos, we have guy with kid worrying about his child. That's all it is. That's all we ever do as parents. We worry about our kids' upbringing, well-being. That's all the new God of War movies were. Jesus. Video games. I got movies on the brain. These things now are not chasing prestige. They're chasing authenticity. And they have a chance to do it right. They're not embarrassed by the source. They're embracing it. I think the Witcher showrunners were embarrassed by the source, and I don't know why. Sapkowski writes a really rich and deep world filled with mysticism and lore, and they turned it into shit. But if you told me back in 1993 that one day we would have a game like The Last of Us breaking hearts on film, or Fallout building worlds, and Sonic making new fans of my own house, I'd have laughed. That's it for me tonight. I hope you guys enjoy this one. This is Solo Bob After Hours. Just inspired to talk about gaming adaptations. I thought this would be a really fun one. And here we are. So maybe that's the lesson tonight. Gaming didn't have to prove itself to Hollywood. Hollywood had to grow up enough to see what was in front of it. Be awesome out there. We'll see you next time.